Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning into my channel. I'm Trans Atheist. Today I want to discuss an article I came across on the Friendly Atheist website that I found very disturbing. It's about the obscene way that a group of elders treat a 15-year-old abuse victim, and the following court cases that have ensued since. But before we start to read the article, I would like to thank all of my subscribers for supporting me. Thank you very much. You may be also pleased to know that I've recently coded up a new website that is live now, so please check that out if you can. It's www.trans-atheist.com. I will leave a link in the description for you. So let's get into reading this article and see what is so disgusting about this case. So, the article says, earlier this week, the Utah Supreme Court heard an horrific case alleging that more than a decade ago, Jehovah's Witness leaders psychologically tortured a 15-year-old girl by forcing her to listen to an audio recording of her own rape. The woman, whose name we have chosen not to print here, says that a fellow congregant, 4 years her senior, first raped her in December of 2007. He raped her multiple times and recorded at least one of those instances. Then, for unknown reasons, he provided a copy of that recording to the congregation's leadership. Given that the age of consent in Utah is 18, those leaders should have taken the evidence directly to law enforcement and reached out to offer the girl support in seeking justice, while demanding that the rapist take responsibility for his actions and attempt to make amends. Of course, that's not what happened. Well, where do you start with this? It's something that really gets to me, cases like these. When will Jehovah's Witnesses elders and the leadership start to respect just basic, simple human rights, especially of those of children? If you hear that a child has been raped, surely your first thought should be to call the police. Yes, talk to the victim, try to console the victim, try to help the victim if you can. But the first and most important thing that you should always do is call the police. Especially if you're someone who is charged with that person's safety, charged with the protection of that person, like a religious leader to a child. But of course, any of us who have been Jehovah's Witnesses in the past know that these elders would not have done this. Anyway, I will read on. Premarital sex is a sin in their faith, so a tribunal of church elders convened in an attempt to convince her to confess. They wanted her to admit that she had engaged in consensual sex outside of the bonds of matrimony. The meeting, during which they played the recording repeatedly, lasted at least 4 hours. She was, at the time, still a minor. The tribunal convened in 2008. After suffering from trauma symptoms that impacted her day-to-day life for years, she filed a lawsuit alleging intentional infliction of emotional distress, or to put it in simpler terms, emotional abuse. She wanted those leaders to be held accountable for traumatizing her. In addition to the 4 elders who participated directly in the tribunal, she sued her local Kingdom Hall and the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, the nationwide organisation that governs the witnesses as an organisation. And damn right she should be suing these elders. I mean, who the hell in their right minds does that to a child? Has you not been through enough with the rape? Sexual abuse as a child is one of those things that sometimes you can never fully recover from. It stays with you. It haunts you when you sleep and affects you throughout your daily life. And then on top of that, knowing that there's a recording of those events somewhere. Now, that's just one level worse. But then to seek help, and to be told that you are a sinner for having sex, trying to make you confess that you enjoyed the sex with your rapist. That's something that if a judge did that, or a police officer did that, or a teacher did that, then they would be sacked immediately, and possibly charges brought against them. So why is it that when it comes to religion, we are meant to believe that this is acceptable? But then add to this whole disgusting affair the fact that these elders thought, you know what? This rapist has a sex tape. And you know what we should do? Well, we should interrogate this 15-year-old girl and force her to listen to these terrible events that are already imprinted on her mind. Yes, that would be the right thing for us to do. Absolutely disgusting behaviour. I wouldn't even waste my spit on these elders. They are, in my opinion, despicable human beings, with behaviour and power-hungry manipulation games. I mean, let's just think about this a little more. Can you imagine any other area in life where a group of people who have a duty of care toward a victim would do this and it would be viewed as correct course of action? Well, I can't. In my mind, you would have to be mentally deranged to even consider forcing a 15-year-old rape victim to listen to 3 hours of recordings of the actual rape. That's clearly torture. Mental and emotional torture. Something I don't think anyone would be able to get over very easily. That would be something that will stick with you forever. And how is it that these elders had no remorse about this, or didn't ask if it was actually the right thing to do? If they were willing to do this so brazenly towards this young girl, just imagine all the other problems that have been brought that have been brought to them over the years in judicial committees, and how many more people have been tortured and handled in a heavy-handed, inhuman way as this girl was. Well, it all comes down to how elders are taught, and severe lack of training that they have in the role as protectors that they've been given, and the severe arrogance they all have with the power that they have, and the importance that they put on doctrine over human life. If this is not the clear signs of a destructive cult, then I just don't know what is. And damn right, this is not only the fault of the elders. This is also firmly on the shoulders of the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society as well. They are the ones who are to uphold the laws of the land, and quite clearly they have failed in even providing basic human rights. They should be forced into paying for all violations that they commit. This organisation cannot keep being allowed to get away with behaviour like this. The case initially came before the Second Judicial District Court in 2016. While that court admitted at the hearing that it would have no hesitation about proceeding with the case if the abuse had taken place in a secular setting, the religious angle complicated matters. Ultimately, they ruled that holding the church liable for traumatizing a young teenager would violate the leader's First Amendment rights. To say that another way, because these leaders allegedly traumatized a girl in a religious setting for religious reasons, there's a legal discussion taking place over whether the courts can do anything about it at all. Robert Friedman of the Institute for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection, who's serving as the plaintiff's attorney, says the lower courts got it wrong. While he and his colleagues acknowledge that religion was a motivating factor for the elders' behaviour, their appeal urges that it cannot justify their clearly reprehensible actions. He said, the clause's prohibition of government action respecting an establishment of religion does not minimise intentionally torturous conduct, like the seriously harmful acts at issue here, simply because the transgressor has a religious motive or the conduct somehow relates to religious discipline. That rule is, if allowed to stand, would give actors free rein to injure others under the guise of religious freedom. When a defendant violates an independent and religiously neutral principle of civil law, the Establishment Clause imposes no obstacle to relief, even if that defendant asserts that he was motivated by a religious belief. Defence attorney Cara Porter described on her firm's website as one of the most experienced and successful appellate lawyers in Utah, argues that the government is legally prohibited from meddling in a church's efforts to determine whether a congregant has committed a sin. She also argued that while she would draw the line at physical torture, infliction of emotional distress is less clear-cut. Justice Dino Jimenez had a strong and succinct response to that. She said, the allegation here is a mental and emotional equivalent of waterboarding. I've been a judge for a long time and a lawyer for a long time too. I've never seen in court anything like this that's alleged. But not everyone on the bench was quite so confident in the court's ability to draw lines separating permissible acts from emotionally abusive ones. Justice Paige Peterson offered up a philosophical objection, as reporter Annie Knox noted. Justice Peterson said, the answer may be a matter of degrees. Simply convening the church tribunal process could distress a person in the faith who knows the conduct is viewed as a sin. On the other end of the spectrum, she said, a group may believe it must do anything necessary to find out what happened, even if the process includes torture. Now, I think this part is also extremely shocking, that this panel of judges are undecided whether or not that they have the ability to act on this case. This is clearly an act that diminishes this girl's human rights. How could you even suggest that what these group of elders have done is in any way permissible and not torture? If a legal system has the ability to allow torture of children, whether it be physical or mental, it does not matter, then that legal system is broken, in my opinion. And if groups like Jehovah's Witnesses have immunity in a case like this, then where does that immunity stop? Could they raid people's homes legally? Throw sinners into witness gulags? Beat sinners in the middle of the Kingdom Hall? Where does it stop? And that says it all, does it not? This is... If this was a secular case, then they would have to act. But because it is religious, there's different rules. I have no issue with people believing in God, worshipping Him, if that's what they really want to do. But if you insist on using those beliefs as a get-out-of-jail-free card, and then go around torturing, abusing, humiliating, and forcing your beliefs down other people's throats, then you have overstepped the bounds of freedom of belief. And you do not deserve to have those freedoms to believe until you stop harming other people. And the article concludes, that hot take is a balm to the defendants, who argue that they were merely carrying out their duty to their faith and their congregation and the woman. At the time, a 15-year-old child could have chosen to walk out at any time despite their position of power. Justice Thomas Lee also raised the question of whether allegations of religious discrimination could get a fair hearing in majority Mormon Utah, where a jury might well consist mostly of faithful Latter-day Saints. He worries that their beliefs might skew their interpretation of what religious orthodoxy and reasonableness is. But Friedman expressed confidence that the jury selection process and the judge's instructions could nullify those issues. The court has not yet ruled on the case. Well, of course Watchtower will cling to that reason. We were only doing what was right and just and what we needed to do to look after everyone's interests. Complete and utter horseshit. They did not have her interests in mind at all. They only cared about themselves and protecting the doctrine and the organisation, as per fucking usual. I thought God was meant to be a God of love, but every time these men of God try to show love, they just shit on everyone and then blame the victim for the stink. This is just more evidence that this organisation is a very dangerous cult and should not be taken seriously at all. They need to be made to pay for each and every single crime and civil attack that they make on vulnerable people. I'm not advocating that they should be dismantled, as there's some very nice and caring people in the rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses, but they should have their tax exemption rescinded and made to pay reparations to individuals and the respective authorities. Well, anyway, that was my thoughts on this story. I felt that I really needed to show this for the bullshit and despicable behaviour that it is. I would like to say that if the young woman involved in this case, if she's ever is to watch my video, my heart truly goes out to you. And I think I speak for most of my viewers when I say that please keep strong and know there's thousands of people who all love you and the strength that you are showing right now. Before I wrap up, I do have a Patreon page, so if you like what I do, then please consider giving even a cup of coffee and a biscuit a month that would be a great help. Also, all links to my other platforms, like Patreon and Discord, are all on my new website, as well as my full list of videos. Again, that is www.trans-atheist.com. I will be leaving a link in the description. Plus, please remember to like, share and subscribe. And please remember, ignorance is never bliss.